Human justice.
Human laws, as already stated, are essential, but they must be improved upon because they do not take love and fraternity sufficiently into consideration. The death penalty must be abolished because no individual has the right to kill another coldly in a premeditated, organized manner. Until the time comes when, through science, society is able to control the violence that occurs in some people and can cure them of their illness, you will keep criminals apart from society, then give them the love that they have lacked, while trying to make them understand the monstrous nature of their actions. Give them also the desire to redeem themselves. Do not mix hardened criminals, who are suffering from an illness that can be contagious, with people who have merely committed petty offences. That way you will avoid contaminating the lesser offenders. Never forget that all criminals are sick, and always consider them as such. We are shocked when we remember that once upon a time we used to suffocate people between mattresses if they suffered from fits of hysteria. Someday, when we are able to cure, and more importantly, prevent the sickness of crime, we will be just as shocked when we look back at how we used to execute criminals. Forgive those who have done you harm unintentionally, and bear no grudge against those who have willingly done you harm. They are ill. For one must be ill to harm one's neighbour. Besides, think how unfortunate those people are who do harm to others, because they will not have the right to eternal life in the gardens of the Elohim. But if someone wants to harm you or those you love, try to subdue them. If you cannot, then you have the right to defend yourself to save your own life or the lives of your loved ones. However, never strike with the intention to kill, even in legitimate defense. Try only to render the person harmless by knocking him or her out, for example. If the blow you give turns out to be fatal, you have nothing to blame yourself for, as long as you did not have the intention to kill. You will subdue violent people by force and, if necessary, by direct action. Violent behavior is intolerable, and you will not tolerate it, even if you have to forcibly restrain violent people. But always use a non-violent force, that is to say, a balanced force applied without malicious intent, sufficient only to overcome those who try to do harm. Any threat of violence should be treated as seriously as an actual violent deed. To threaten violence is to think it possible, and to see it as an acceptable way of achieving one's goals. A person capable of threatening another with violence is as dangerous as someone who has already committed a violent act. Until we can find a medical cure for those who make such threats, they must be kept outside society, and we must try to make them understand that their behaviour is dreadful. When dealing with those who take hostages, think first of the lives of innocent people who are not in the hands of the hostage takers. People who take hostages are sick, and you should not give them what they demand. Society, in fact, must never give in to them, because by doing so you encourage other criminals to copy such actions and give credence to their threats. All human beings must have equal rights and opportunities at birth, whatever race they may be. Discriminate against fools, however, whatever the colour of their skin. All the races that populate the earth were created by the Elohim and must be equally respected. Humanity as a whole must unite to form a world government, as it is written in the first part of this message. Impose also a new world language on all the school children of the entire world. Esperanto exists, and if no one proposes anything better, choose Esperanto. Until it becomes possible to abolish money, create a new world currency to replace national currencies. Therein lies the solution to the monetary crisis. If no one can propose anything better, use the federalist system. Create a federation from all the countries of the world. Grant independence to those regions which need to be able to organize themselves as they wish. The world will live in harmony when it is no longer composed of separate countries, but consists instead of regions united in a federation to take charge of the future of the earth.
Science.
Science is the most important thing of all for humanity. You will keep yourself in touch with the advances made by scientists, because they can solve all your problems. Do not let scientific discoveries fall into the hands of those who think only of making profit, nor into the hands of the military, who keep certain inventions secret in order to retain a hypothetical supremacy over illusory enemies. Science should be your religion, for the Elohim created you scientifically. By being scientific, you please your creators, because you are acting as they do, and you show them that you understand that you are made in their image, and you are anxious to take advantage of all the potential that you have within you. Science must be used to serve and liberate humankind, not to destroy and alienate it. Trust those scientists who are not being manipulated by financial interests, and only them. You may participate in sports, for they are very good for your equilibrium, particularly those sports that develop self-control. Society should also authorize violent, and even very violent sports. These are safety valves. An evolved and non-violent society must have violent games that maintain an image of violence, enabling young people who wish it to be violent with others who wish the same thing. This also allows others to watch these violent exhibitions and so release their aggressive energies. You may participate in games that require thought and the use of the mind, but as long as money has not been abolished, never play to win money. Rather, play for the pleasure of making your mind function. You will date your writings counting the year 1946 as year 1, after Claude Rael, the last of the prophets. Then 1976 is therefore year 31 after Claude Rael, or year 31 of the era of Aquarius, or year 31 of the age of the Apocalypse, or year 31 of the Golden Age.
The human brain.
We still have a long way to go to fully understand the potential of the human brain. For example, the sixth sense. Direct perception should be developed in young children. This is what we call telepathy. Telepathy enables us to communicate directly with our creators, the Elohim. Numerous mediums have come to me asking what they should do, because they have received messages from what they call the beyond, asking them to get in touch with me in order to help me, and for me in my turn to bring their light. Mediums are very important people because they have an above-average gift of telepathy and their minds are already on the path to an awakened state. They should try to practice meditation in order to fully master their potential. I, Claude Rael, am eagerly waiting for all those mediums who have received such messages to get in touch with me so that we may organize regular meetings. The true mediums who seek to be informed will all receive instructions. The power of one brain is great, but the power of several brains is infinite. Let those who have ears hear. Never forget that all those things which you do not understand, and which scientists cannot explain, have been created by the Elohim. The clockmaker knows all the parts of the clock he has made.
The Apocalypse.
Do not forget that the Apocalypse, literally the age of revelation, has arrived as was predicted. It has been said that when the time comes there will be many false prophets. You only have to look around you to see that the time has indeed come. False prophets are writers of horoscopes, of which the newspapers are full, and there are also many others who reject the benefits of science and cling to every last letter of ancient writings that were messages given by the Elohim to the primitive people of our ancient times. Such false prophets prefer to believe what narrow-minded and primitive people have fearfully copied down long ago, while listening to those whom they considered to be gods because they came from the sky. They should instead believe the message of the Elohim that has been given now to people who no longer kneel stupidly before all that comes from the sky. These latter people try to understand the universe, and they can be addressed as adults. But if you look around, you will see the crowds of fanatic and obscurantist religious sects which attract young, impressionable people thirsty for the truth. A philosopher once said, "Jesus came to show people the path to follow," and everybody kept staring at his finger. Meditate on this sentence. It is not the messenger who matters, but the person who sends the message and the message itself. Do not go astray among the sects of the East. The truth is not on top of the Himalayas any more than in Peru or elsewhere. The truth is within you. But if you want to travel and you like exotic places, go to all these distant countries. You will understand then that you have wasted your time, and that what you were looking for was inside you all the time. Travel within yourself, otherwise you are only a tourist. Someone who passes by and thinks he or she will find the truth by watching others search for it within themselves. They may find it, perhaps, but those watching them certainly will not. To travel inside yourself, you do not need to take a plane. The East has nothing to teach the West about wisdom and awakening the mind. Rather, the opposite is true. How can you find wisdom amongst people who die from hunger as they watch herds of sacred cows go by? On the contrary, it is the West with its intellect and its science that comes to help people who for ages have been shackled by primitive and murderous beliefs. It is not by chance that countries in the West no longer face the same problems as those of the Third World. Where the mind rules, the body does not die of hunger. Where obscurantism prevails, the body cannot survive. Can primitive people solve the problems of famine in the world and give food to those who are starving? They already have enough difficulties trying to feed themselves, and you expect to find wisdom there. All the people of the earth had the same chances at the beginning. Some have solved their problems, and even have more than they need, while others simply do not have the means to survive. In your opinion, which ones can help the others? The people of the West still have an enormous distance to go on the path of open-mindedness, but the people of the East have not achieved 1/10 of what the people of the West have achieved.
Telepathic communication.
Mind and matter are eternally the same thing. It is stated in the Bard or Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and that quotation is an appropriate introduction to this section. If you want to have telepathic communication of a very high quality, do not cut your hair or your beard. Certain people have a telepathic organ that is sufficiently developed to work well even if their head is shaved. But if you want to achieve the best results, then do not cut what the creators have made grow on your head and face. If it grows, there is a reason. For none of your physical characteristics were given to you without reason. By respecting the creation, you respect the creator. The best moment to enter into communication with your creators is on waking, because as your body is emerging from sleep, your mind is reawakening too. A mechanism starts up at that point, a mechanism which you must activate by deliberately opening your mind as far as possible to everything around you and to infinity. You should take special care not to halt the process. Sit down cross-legged, or better still, lie on your back on the ground. If possible, position yourself in the open air and look up towards the sky. The mind is like a rose. In the morning, it begins to open, but you often prune it when it is still just a bud. If you would wait a little, it would bloom. To practice physical fitness is good, but to practice the physical fitness of the mind is better. Yet do not be impatient if you do not obtain results right away. When an organ is not used, it atrophies. When you have had a limb in plaster for a long time, you need a lot of physical therapy to recover its normal use. Look up to the sky and think of your position in the context of everything that surrounds you. Visualize yourself in relation to the house that you occupy, a tiny speck lost between stone walls. See yourself in relation to all the people who are waking up at the same time as you, and in relation to those who, on other parts of the globe, are going to bed. Think of all those who are being born, those who are uniting with each other physically, those who are suffering, working or dying at that time. Think of them all and situate yourself accordingly at your own level of existence. Situate yourself in relation to the infinitely large as well. Think of the town where you are, a tiny speck lost in a landscape that is the country, the continent, or the island where you live. Then fly away in your mind as if you were in a plane travelling further and further away from the ground, until the town and then the continent are nothing but a tiny spot on the map. Be aware of the fact that you are on the earth, a small ball where humanity is but a parasite. It is always spinning, although you do not realize this is happening. Situate yourself in relation to it, and in relation to the moon, which is revolving around the earth, and in relation to the earth, which is revolving around the sun, and in relation to the sun, which is itself rotating as it revolves around the centre of our galaxy. Situate yourself in relation to the stars that are also suns which have planets orbiting them. On these planets, an infinite number of other beings live, and among them is the planet of our creators, the Elohim, as well as the planet of the Eternals, where you may one day be admitted for eternity. Locate yourself in relation to all those worlds where other living beings live, some more advanced and some more primitive than we are, and in relation to those galaxies which themselves revolve around the centre of the universe. Finally, situate yourself in relation to our whole universe, which itself is an atom of a molecule located perhaps in the arm of somebody who is looking up at the sky, wondering whether there is life on other planets. This is all in relation to the infinitely large. Then situate yourself also in relation to your body, to all its vital organs, and to the other parts of which it is made up. Think of all those organs that are working without your noticing it, right at this very moment. Think of your heart, which is beating without your asking it to, your blood, which circulates and irrigates your whole body, and your brain, which enables you to reflect and be conscious of doing so. Think of all the corpuscles that make up your blood, and of all the cells that are being born in your body, those feeling pleasure whilst reproducing, and those that are dying without your knowing it, and perhaps without being conscious that they help form the individual that you are. Think too of all the molecules that constitute these cells, and the atoms that constitute these molecules, revolving like suns around the centre of a galaxy, and of the particles that make up these atoms, and of the particles of these particles on which there is life asking itself if there is life on other planets. This is all in relation to the infinitely small. Place yourself in harmony with the infinitely large and with the infinitely small by radiating love towards what is above and towards what is below, and by being conscious that you yourself are part of infinity. Then by thinking intensely about your message of love to the Elohim, our creators. Try to transmit to them your wish to see them, to join them one day, to have the strength to earn the reward of being among the chosen ones. Then you will feel light and ready to do good around you with all your strength all day long, because you will be in harmony with infinity. You may also do these exercises in the sensual meditation room during the day, alone or with other people. But the moment when you come closest to perfect harmony will occur when this takes place in your room of sensual meditation with someone you love, and you unite yourself physically with him or her, and jointly harmonize yourself with infinity during your union. In the evening, when the sky is full of stars and the temperature is mild, lie down on the ground, look up at the heavens and think intensely of the Elohim, wishing that someday you may deserve to be amongst them, and think strongly that you are available and ready to do exactly what they may ask of you, even if you do not clearly understand why they are asking it. Perhaps you will see a signal if you are sufficiently ready. As you are lying there on your back, be aware of the extent to which your organs of perception are limited, which explains the difficulty you may have in conceiving of infinity. A force keeps you nailed to the ground. You cannot fly off to the stars with a jerk, and yet you do not see any rope holding you down. Millions of people are listening to thousands of radio stations and watching hundreds of television programs that are being broadcast in the atmosphere. Yet you do not see these waves of sound and vision, and you do not hear them. Compasses all have their points drawn to the north, and yet you neither see nor hear the forces that act on them. So I repeat again, your organs of perception are very limited, and energies like the universe are infinite. Wake yourself up, and wake up the organs you have within you, which will allow you to receive waves that you are not yet picking up, or do not even suspect. Simple pigeons are able to find the north, and you, a human being, cannot. Think about this for a moment. Furthermore, teach your children whose organs are developing all about this. This is how the new humanity will be born, and their faculties will be infinitely superior to those of present human beings. When his growth is finished, a man who has never learnt to walk will always be a cripple, and even if he is taught later, he will always be handicapped, even if he is very gifted. Therefore it is during their growth that you must open the minds of your children, so that all their faculties may blossom, and they will turn into individuals who have nothing in common with what we are, poor, narrow-minded, primitive people.
The reward.
May this book guide those who recognize and love our creators, the Elohim. May it guide those who believe in them and those who remember to communicate telepathically with them, thus rediscovering the original meaning of prayer. May it guide those who do good to their fellow human beings. May it guide those who believe in what was revealed to me and in what was revealed before me, and those who are sure that scientific reincarnation is a reality. All such people have a guide and an aim in life, and are happy. As for those who are not awakened, it is useless to speak to them about this message of the Elohim. One who is asleep cannot hear, and the unconscious mind does not wake up in just a few moments, especially if the person sleeping finds his or her sleep very comfortable. Spread this message around you to those who do good to their fellow human beings. Spread it particularly among those who, by using the mind that the Elohim gave them, are relieving society from fear of food shortages, disease, and the burden of daily exertion. They do this by giving others time to fulfill themselves and blossom, and it is for such individuals that the fountained gardens of the planet of the Eternals are reserved. For it is not enough merely to avoid harming others without doing them any good. Anyone whose life has been neutral will be entitled to neutrality. That is to say, he will not be recreated, neither to pay for crimes which have not been committed, nor to receive the reward for non-existent good deeds. Anyone who has made many people suffer during part of his life, and then makes up for it by doing as much good as harm, will also be neutral. To have the right to scientific reincarnation on the planet of the Eternals, one must have an unambiguously positive assessment at the end of one's life. To be satisfied with doing good on a small scale around oneself is enough for someone who is not of superior intelligence, or who is not wealthy. But it is not enough for someone who is very intelligent or wealthy. A very intelligent person has a duty to use the mind given to them by the Elohim to bring happiness to others by inventing new techniques to improve their living conditions. Those people who will be entitled to scientific reincarnation on the planet of the Eternals will live in a world where food will be brought to them without their having to make the slightest effort, and where there will be marvelously beautiful female and male partners scientifically created for the sole purpose of satisfying their pleasures. They will live there eternally, seeking only to fulfill themselves, doing whatever pleases them. As for those who have made others suffer, they will be recreated, and their suffering will be equal to the pleasure of the Eternals. How can you not believe in all this now that science and ancient religions are coming together perfectly? You are nothing but matter, mere dust, yet the Elohim made you into living beings in their image capable of dominating matter. Later, you will again become matter or dust, and they will make you live once more as they have created you scientifically. The Elohim created the first human beings without knowing that they were doing what had already been done for them. They thought they were only conducting a minor scientific experiment, and that is why they destroyed almost all of humanity the first time. But when they understood that they had been created just like us, they began to love us as their own children, and swore never to try to destroy us again, leaving us to overcome our own violence by ourselves. Although the Elohim do not directly intervene for or against humanity as a whole, they do, however, exert influence on some individuals whose actions please or displease them. Woe to those who claim to have met the Elohim or to have received a message from them if it is not true. Their life will become hell, and they will regret their lie when faced with all the troubles they will encounter. Also, those who act against the Guide of Guides and try to prevent him carrying out his mission, or who go along with him in order to spread strife amongst those who follow him, they will also see their life become hell. Without any obvious influence coming from above, they will know why disease, family and professional difficulties, emotional woes and other problems will all invade their earthly existence while they await their eternal punishment. You who smile as you read these lines, you are among those who would have crucified Jesus if you had lived in his time. Yet now, you want to see members of your family born, get married and die under his effigy because this has become part of our morals and customs, behaving like those who went to see the lions devouring the first Christians. You also direct ironic smiles at those who believe in these writings, saying that they should spend some time in a psychiatric asylum. Nowadays, when someone has disturbing ideas, he is no longer crucified or fed to wild animals. This is far too barbaric. Rather, such people are sent to psychiatric asylums. Had these establishments existed 2,000 years ago, Jesus and those who believed in him would have been confined there. As for those who believe in eternal life, ask them why they weep when they lose a loved one. For as long as humankind was unable to understand the work of the Elohim scientifically, it was natural for people to believe in an impalpable God. But now that, thanks to science, you understand that matter is infinitely large and infinitely small, You no longer have an excuse to believe in the God that your primitive ancestors believed in. The Elohim, our creators, intend to be recognized by those who are capable now of understanding how life can be created, and can make the appropriate comparisons with ancient writings. Those people will have the right to eternity. Christians, you have read 100 times that Jesus would return, yet if he came back you would put him in a psychiatric asylum. Come, open your eyes. Sons of Israel, you are still waiting for your Messiah, and yet you do not open the door. Buddhists, your writings indicate that the new Buddha will be born in the West. Recognize the anticipated signs. Muslims, Mohammed reminded you that the Jewish people had made an error in killing the prophets, and that the Christians had also made an error in adoring their prophets more than the one who sent him. So welcome the last of the prophets, and love those who sent him. If you recognize the Elohim as your creators, and if you love them and wish to welcome them, if you try to do good to other people by making as much as you can of all your potential, if you think of your creators regularly, trying through telepathy to make them understand that you love them, if you help the Guide of Guides to accomplish his mission, you will without a doubt be entitled to scientific reincarnation on the planet of the Eternals. When humanity discovered the necessary form of energy to travel to the moon, it also came to possess sufficient energy to destroy all life on Earth. The hour has drawn near, and the moon is rent asunder, it says in the Quran, Surah 54, verse 1. Therefore, any day now, humanity can destroy itself. Only those who follow the last of the prophets will be saved from destruction. Long ago, people did not believe Noah, and they laughed at him when he made preparations for the destruction. But they did not have the last laugh. When the Elohim told the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah to leave the city without looking back, some did not heed those warnings and were destroyed. Now that we have reached the stage where humanity itself may destroy all life on earth, only those who recognize the Elohim as their creators will be saved from destruction. You may still not believe any of this, but when the time comes you will think of these lines again, and it will be too late. When the cataclysm takes place, and there is a good chance it will happen quite soon, given the way human beings are presently behaving, there will be two sorts of people. Those who have not recognized their creators and have not followed the last of the prophets, and those who have opened their eyes and ears and recognized what was made known a long time ago. The former will undergo the suffering and destruction of the final furnace, and the latter will be spared and taken with the Guide of Guides to the planet of the Eternals. There they will enjoy a marvelous life of fulfillment and pleasure with the sages of ancient times. It is they who will be waited on by magnificent athletes with beautiful sculptured bodies, who will bring them sophisticated food to savor in the company of men and women of unequaled beauty and charm, who will be entirely compliant to their desires. Seated on couches wrought with gold and jewels, reclining thereon facing each other, there will wait on them youths who will not age, carrying goblets and ewers and cups filled out of a flowing spring. No headache will they get therefrom, nor will they be intoxicated, and carrying such fruits as they choose, and flesh of birds as they may desire, and there will be fair maidens with wide lovely eyes, like pearls we preserved, as a reward for what they did. The Quran, Surah 56, verses 15 and 24. You who believe in all that is written here, when the Guide of Guides summons you somewhere, drop everything, for it might be because he has received some information concerning the end. If you are near him at that moment, you will be saved and taken away with him, far from the suffering. You who believe, do not pass judgment on the words or deeds of the Elohim. The created do not have the right to judge their creator. Respect our prophet, and do not pass judgment on his actions or his words, for we hear through his ears, and we see through his eyes, and we speak through his mouth. If you lack respect for the prophet, you lack respect for those who sent him, your creators. The messages that were given earlier by the Elohim and all those people who adhered fully to them over the centuries were right, but the obscurantist systems that were built on these messages using those who had a feeling for them were wrong. The church is in the process of disappearing, and it deserves to disappear. As for the men and women of the church, let those who have their eyes open join the last of the prophets and help him spread throughout the world the latest message that has been handed to him. He will welcome them with open arms, and they will be able to blossom and fulfill themselves completely, while remaining the messengers of those whom they had always believed. But this time, they will at last truly comprehend what the Elohim's task was when they created humanity and when they sent Jesus. They will really be able to fulfill themselves, released from the constraints of the church, which is fossilized and encrusted with crimes and criminal inquisitions thousands of years old. They will be able to do what they must do, make use of the organs their creators gave them. For our creators do not like us failing to use the organs they gave us. The men and women of the church will be able to enjoy their 5 senses and unite physically forever, or for an instant of happiness with whomsoever they please, without feeling guilty. It is now that they should feel guilty for not using all that was given to them by their creators. But, released from their old constraints, they will truly open people's minds instead of putting them to sleep. There are now hardly any students left in Roman Catholic seminaries where priests are trained. But there are some unhappy people who feel they have a vocation to spread love around them and open people's minds. 50 years ago there were some 50,000 seminarists undergoing training at any one time, but now there are only 500. This means that there are at least 49,500 unhappy people who have in them the potential to radiate the truth and harmony placed in them by our creators, but who do not feel attracted to a church shrouded with crimes and darkness. You who are among those 49,500 people, feeling a need to radiate the truth and do something for your fellow people. You who want to remain faithful to your creators and to Jesus, who told you to love one another and to respect your creators, the Father who is in heaven. You who feel that this message is true, come with us and become guides. Come and devote yourselves to the Elohim in the tradition of Moses, Elijah, and Jesus, and to the spreading of their message while continuing to live a normal life, truly fulfilling yourself and enjoying all the senses that your creators gave you. You who are presently members of the church, take off those clothes that are as sad as their colour, the colour of the crimes that have been committed under their facade. Come with us and become guides for humanity on the path of universal peace and love. Leave those churches that are nothing but monuments built by primitive people, temples where they could adore worthless things, pieces of wood and metal. The Elohim do not need temples in every city to feel loved. It is sufficient that human beings try to communicate with them telepathically, thereby rediscovering the original meaning of prayer, but also opening themselves to infinity, and not shutting themselves away in obscure mystical stone buildings. Hypocrisy and mystification have lasted long enough. Using truthful messages as their basis, organizations were built and grew fat on them, living in misplaced luxury and using people's fear to achieve their own ends. Wars were even waged under the pretext of spreading these messages abroad. Shame. The money of the poor has been used to build a financial power base. Shame. Love for one's neighbour has been preached with weapons in hand. Shame. Human equality has been preached while supporting dictatorships. Shame. God is with us was said to encourage people to launch themselves into fratricidal wars. Shame. Many times has the following gospel passage been quoted. And you will make no man call you Father upon the earth, for you have only one Father, he who is in heaven. Matthew 23:9. Yet in the church they make sure they themselves are constantly called Father, and Monsignor, and my Lord. Shame. Other texts have been read again and again that say, do not take along any gold, nor silver, nor brass in your purses. Take no bag for your journey, nor even a spare pair of shoes, nor coat, nor yet staves. Matthew 10:9 and 10. Yet they have been wallowing in the luxury of the Vatican. Shame. The Pope, if he does not sell all the properties of the Vatican to help unfortunate people, will not be admitted among the righteous on the planet of the Eternals. It is shameful to wallow in luxury acquired at the expense of poor people by using true messages and by exploiting the births, marriages and deaths of human beings. If all this changes, and if those people who were part of that monstrous organization without understanding their mistake now leave it and regret their error, they will be forgiven and entitled to eternity. For the Elohim, our creators, love us, their children, and forgive all those who sincerely regret their errors. The church has no reason to exist any longer, for it was entrusted with spreading the message of Jesus in anticipation of the age of the apocalypse. And this age has now come. Also, the Church has used methods of disseminating information that are a shame to it. Although it has accomplished its mission, the Church will be reproached for all its crimes, and those who still wear its clothes, covered with its blood, will be among the guilty. Wake up, slumberer that you are. This is no fabricated story. Reread all the writings of the ancient prophets. Inform yourself about the most recent scientific discoveries, especially in biology, and look at the sky. The predicted signs are there. The UFOs, unidentified flying objects, which mankind has dubbed flying saucers, are appearing every day. There will be signs in the sky. That was written a long time ago. Once you have informed yourself of these things, integrate them all in your mind and wake up. Claude Rael exists. He is indeed alive. And he has not written what Moses, Ezekiel, Elijah, Jesus, Mohammed, Buddha, and all the others wrote. He is not a biologist, but he is the last of the line of prophets, the prophet of the apocalypse. That is, of the time when everything can be understood. He is living among you right now. You are lucky enough to be one of his contemporaries, and you are able to receive his teaching. Wake up, pull yourself together, and take to the road. Go and see him and help him. He needs you. You will be one of the pioneers of the final religion, the religion of religions, and you will have your place, whatever may happen, among the righteous for eternity, savouring the delights of the planet of the Eternals in the company of wonderfully pleasant beings who are ready to fulfill all your desires.
The guides.
You will follow the guide of guides, for he is the ambassador of the Elohim, our creators, our fathers who art in heaven. You will follow all the advice that is given in this book, because it is the advice of your creators, transmitted by Claude Rael, our ambassador, the last of the prophets, the shepherd of shepherds, and you will help him to build the religion of religions. Jews, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and all you who have other religions, open your eyes and your ears, reread your holy writings, and you will understand that this book is the last one, the one predicted by your own prophets. Come and join us to prepare for the coming of our creators. Write to the guide of guides, and he will put you in touch with other people who, like you, are Raelians. That is, people who understand the message transmitted by Claude Rael. He will put you in touch with a guide in your region so that you may meet regularly to meditate and act to spread this message, so that it becomes known throughout the world. You who are reading this message, be aware that you are privileged and think of all those who do not yet know about it. Do all you can to make sure that no one around you is ignorant of these fantastic revelations, without ever trying to convince those to whom you speak. Bring this message to their notice, and if they are ready, they will open up by themselves. Constantly repeat to yourself this sentence of Gandhi's: "It is not because no one sees the truth that it becomes an error." You who feel joy in reading this message, and who wish to radiate the truth and make it shine around you, you who want to live by devoting yourself totally to our creators, by applying scrupulously what they ask, by training to guide humanity on the path of blossoming and fulfillment, you should become a guide if you want to be fully capable of this. Write to the guide of guides, to Claude Rael, and he will make you welcome and arrange an initiation which will enable you to radiate this truth fully. For you can open the minds of others only if your own mind is open. The love of the creators for their work is immense, and you should return this love to them. You must love them as they love you, and prove it by assisting their ambassador and his helpers, putting all your means and all your strength at their service, so that they may travel all over the world to spread this message and build an embassy to welcome our creators. If you wish to help me realize the goal set by the Elohim, write to me, Rael at the International Raelian Movement, Casse Postale 225 CH 1211, Geneva 8, Switzerland. Also, do not forget that regular local meetings of people who believe in the final message are held on the first Sunday of April, on 6th of August, 7th of October, and 13th of December each year. The venues for these meetings will be set out in the liaison bulletin of the Raelian movement of your country, and some addresses to help you make contact are listed at the end of this book.
Author's Postscript, 1997.
Many things have happened since I wrote the 2 books that now make up this first edition to be published commercially in Britain, the British Commonwealth and the United States. I originally published the book which tells the truth privately in my own language in France in 1974, and followed it with Extraterrestrials Took Me to Their Planet in 1976. Until now, I have added nothing whatsoever to those 2 original texts. Meantime, they have been translated into 25 languages by volunteer Raelian supporters, and more than 1 million copies of my books have been sold worldwide. Until now, all previous English versions of the books have been printed, published and distributed under the control of the international Raelian movement, first from Canada, then later from Japan. This specially retranslated volume is the first fully commercial publication of my writings anywhere in the world, and I am confident that this will bring the understandings they contain to an ever wider audience. During these first 24 years of its existence, the international Raelian movement has grown steadily, and at present has a total of about 40,000 active members worldwide. National branches of the IRM are now established in 84 countries, including all the world's major nations, and people are coming forward all the time to help make this extraordinary final message of the Elohim better known. More good people are still needed, but at the time of writing the movement is strongest in France, Canada and Japan. It is also expanding strongly in the United States, Australia, Southeast Asia, Latin America and Africa, as well as in Britain and most of the other countries of Europe. More recently, new national branches of the movement have been founded in Hawaii, China and South Africa. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, I wrote and published further books which served to amplify the information in this volume. In their English versions they are entitled Let's Welcome Our Fathers from Space, 1979, and Sensual Meditation, 1980. At regular seminars held in every continent of the world since then, the teachings of the Elohim which I have set down in these books have been passed on to many thousands of people of all ages by myself and senior members of the IRM. In all, there are now around 130 guides, or Raelian priests, worldwide. The movement also publishes an international quarterly glossy magazine, Apocalypse, in which I and other leading Raelians write of current developments. This publication helps to disseminate further the philosophies and insights of the Elohim. Preparations to build the secure embassy requested by the Elohim are also progressing well. The embassy and residents need to be protected by extraterritorial rights, like any normal international diplomatic mission, and in accordance with the Elohim's precise instructions. Raelian architects have already completed commissioned drawings for the complex of buildings where the most dramatic and extraordinary meeting of world government leaders in history will take place. Not long after we built a small-scale model of the embassy based on these drawings, a crop circle appeared in England which bore an astonishing resemblance to it. Around $7 million have been raised so far towards building the embassy, and money continues to be donated. But I have to say that finance is not the chief obstacle to the completion of this project. The political and diplomatic problems are a thornier issue, and to overcome them patience and perseverance will be required. In this regard, the international Raelian movement has several times since 1991 made representations to the Israeli government and to the chief rabbi in Jerusalem, requesting that the necessary extraterritoriality be granted so that the embassy may be built close to Jerusalem, where the Elohim created the first human beings. The first temple of the Jewish religion was in fact a previous embassy around which the ancient city was built. The Elohim are now waiting for the State of Israel to grant such extraterritorial status for the new embassy, the third temple. But so far there has been no positive response from Israel. The first approach was made on 8th of November 1991, at the Jewish New Year, and another official request was made to Israel's chief rabbi some months later. The request was acknowledged, and a study of the application was begun. In the summer of 1993, an Israeli government commission concluded that the Raelian movement was peaceful in intent and was of no threat to Israel's security. In their report, two rabbis concluded that it would be better not to do anything against Rael, in case he really is the awaited Messiah. In November 1993, a further direct request was made to Israel's Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, when he was in Canada attending the Montreal Jewish Convention. But after a month, Mr. Rabin replied through one of his office representatives that he could not grant it. If Israel ultimately declines to allow a grant of the extraterritoriality, as already indicated, we will most likely establish the embassy on Palestinian or Egyptian territory, or in another neighbouring state. In fact, the lower slopes of Mount Sinai would make an excellent alternative choice, since that is where Yahweh, the leader of the Elohim, first appeared to Moses. Nevertheless, the Elohim would prefer to give Israel the opportunity to agree to this request, since that is the whole purpose of the State of Israel. Already in 1990, as a sign of their special feeling towards the people of Israel, they agreed to my suggestion to modify their original symbol of infinity when used by Raelian movements in the West. The central swastika, which means well-being in Sanskrit, and also represents infinity and time, was replaced with a galaxy-shaped swirl. This change was made in an effort to help the negotiations for building the embassy of the Elohim in Israel, and also out of respect for the sensitivities of the victims who suffered and died under the Nazi swastika during the Second World War. In Asia, where the swastika can be found in most Buddhist temples and where it represents infinity and time, the original symbol is not a problem. This modification of the IRM symbol for the West was of course gladly made, and when looking back now and surveying our progress since 1973, I can see that everything is going according to plan. The international Raelian movement will one day achieve all the goals set by the Elohim, with or without my participation. I know it has become self-sustaining and could now function perfectly well without me. A lot still remains to be done, and even when at last the great day dawns, and the Elohim land openly and officially before the eyes of world government leaders and the international array of television cameras and media representatives, some skeptics, I expect, will still continue to doubt whether these highly advanced human beings could truly have created all life artificially on our planet. The leading members of the IRM and myself are aware this might be so, but this does not daunt us. Quite the reverse. Since 1973, scientific research has continued to confirm the essence of the information given to me then by the Elohim. Most notably this year in Britain, it was announced that Scottish scientists had succeeded in cloning a sheep. This landmark event in human scientific history made it clear that very soon the cloning of human beings will be possible. Just as on the Elohim's planet, it will become a means for human beings to achieve eternal life. No ethics committee in the world will be able to prevent human beings from wishing to do this. The next steps required will be those that make possible the transfer of mental information, memory and personality from an aging individual into a new, physically young adult clone. This transfer of memory directly into a young adult means that effectively the same individual can live indefinitely. Human laws will have to be adapted to our changing culture and increasing technological advances, and I am very proud to have created CloneAid, the first human cloning company, which can now be contacted on the internet at its website, cloneaid.com. These are still early days for all such issues, but new laws will have to be passed to define criteria setting out who will be allowed to benefit from these technologies. Here, as on the Elohim's planet, the number of clones will also need to be limited to one per individual, and then only after death. The Elohim themselves will land here on Earth in the not-too-distant future. It will be no longer than 38 years, and might be much sooner, if the truth I have described in this book spreads more rapidly around the world. The Elohim will bring with them all the great prophets of the past, including Moses, Elijah, the Buddha, Jesus Christ and Mohammed. This long-awaited event will be the most wonderful day in the history of humanity. I hope you will be present when they land at their embassy, and are able to share the joy of knowing that you were part of this wonderful adventure, and that you helped financially to build it. The area where the embassy is to be built will become the spiritual center of the world in the next millennium. People from all nations will come in pilgrimage to this holy place. A replica of the embassy will be built near the real one and open to the public so that they can see what it is like inside. But will the Raelian movement's mission end with the coming of our creators? Not at all. On the contrary, it will be the real beginning of our mission. With the disappearance of all primitive religions, the vacuum will have to be filled with a new spirituality, one that is in tune with the technological revolution still to come. We are now today's human beings using tomorrow's technology, with yesterday's religions and yesterday's thinking. Thanks to the Elohim, we will be able to reach new spiritual levels by embracing their own religion, an atheist one, that of infinity as represented by their symbol. The guides of the Raelian movement will become the priests of this new religion, allowing human beings to feel in harmony with the infinitely small and the infinitely great, allowing them to realize we are stardust and energies forever. Laboratories and universities will be built close to the embassy, and there, under the guidance of the Elohim, human scientists will be able to improve their knowledge. In this way, we will gradually approach the Elohim's scientific level. This will enable us to venture out to other planets, to create life ourselves, and we will become in our own turn Elohim for those we create. Spirituality and science will work together, free at last from the medieval fears that have haunted our past. This will enable us to become gods ourselves, as was written long ago in the ancient scriptures. But let's first build the embassy. Rael, Quebec, Canada, summer 1997.